Hello and welcome once again to the White Lotus of Light conversational series. I am very pleased and feel very blessed to have today Grandmaster Timothy Hogan. For those who don't know, he is a world-renowned esotericist, leader of a number of Templar lineages, and I'm just going to go ahead and read this introduction so you can know who Tim is. So Timothy Hogan is Grandmaster of the Order of the Temple of Secret Initiates, a Knights Templar lineage, and he runs the Templar Collegiate, which I am a member of, and the Martinist Order of the Temple in conjunction with it. He is also a high initiate of several other traditions, including within Freemasonry and multiple Rosicrucian lineages. He is also a Gnostic bishop and has been ordained as a Tibetan Powa Rinpoche. Beyond this, he is an author of multiple books. I have a lot on my shelf over there. And he is an expert in cross-cultural symbolism. He also does work in the entertainment industry and does track 2 diplomacy and is known for his lectures at universities and U.S. embassies worldwide, as well as private events. And so, Tim, oh my gosh, well, how are you doing for starters?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I've been really looking forward to this. You know, the last show we did, I felt was really great, and I'm sure this will be too.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much, Tim. Yeah, I'm humbled to have you on. And one of the things, by the way, folks, you know, I've studied sort of the esoteric and occult and also secret societies and mystery schools and that sort of things for going on 20 years. But I was always kind of leery of joining various groups. And then I heard Tim on actually the show that I somewhat model my channel after, which is Forum Borealis, probably about 4 or 5 years ago now. And what really stunned me about Tim is you heard that very lengthy introduction of all the, and believe it or not, Tim is actually underselling all the stuff that he has going on. As I said in the previous episode I had him on, I call him the walking library of Alexandria. He's like one of the most phenomenally knowledgeable people I know, but you can see, even just looking at him, Tim is an incredibly humble human being, and it's his humility that actually is the most impressive to me characteristic, and it's what immediately attracted me to him, along with the beautiful message that he brought in that interview. And so, you know, I consider Tim a friend, and he's just a really awesome, humble person, which is amazing because he's so incredibly knowledgeable.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And so we're going to start with the first half. We're going to talk about Tim recently took a trip to Egypt. I tried to go and I couldn't get like my passport situation resolved timely because everything's backed up still with the COVID stuff. And I had really wanted to go because it was Egypt, and they went to all kinds of places. And we're going to kind of spend the first half of the show. We're going to do a 2-parter here. The first half will be talking about Tim's recent trip to Egypt and kind of the Templar connection to the Giza Plateau, the Tauru, as it was called in ancient times. And also even going further back, the connection to Egypt through things like the Edfu building text, which is part of the trip that Tim recently took, to what Plato called Atlantis, or some people call the antediluvian or Ice Age civilizations. And so, Tim, I'm going to periodically try and bring up some pictures to illustrate this, but can you tell us a bit about that trip and its significance to you? And like, was there anything that you know so much, like, does anything surprise you anymore? Was there any new information or revelations on this trip?
There was actually, there was Fantastic. A lot, which surprised me. I mean, I've been to Egypt before. We did initiations in the Great Pyramid back in 2011.
Oh yeah.
Which kind of, if you Google November 11th, 2011, Great Pyramid shuts down because of rumors of secret Masonic-like rituals going on inside of it. That was me, you know. So if you Google that, you'll find a bunch of articles from The Guardian and other places about that. But you know, the last time I was there in 2011, it was during the Arab Spring, so things were a little more crazy at the time.
Hmm.
But this trip was, you know, it was very stable. It was great. We did get to go to dozens of temples and secret sites, many of which we got to go into areas that are closed to the public.
Wow.
Uh, and some new areas that you know, have just been found.
Hmm.
And you know, it was a little overwhelming. I mean, one of the main things we were looking for out there was evidence of lost technologies. That was for one, you know, evidence of
Hmm.
technologies that had been used in the ancient world, which we found a lot of examples of.
Hmm.
We also were looking for, we were tracing, you know, most people don't know that the Knights Templar, you know, the order that I represent, had a whole base of operations there in Egypt, clear back in the 1200s. And
Wow.
they just kind of took over certain areas to work out of that they were studying. So we were visiting those areas. I mean, for example, at Philae, the
Hmm.
Temple of Isis at Philae was the Templar headquarters for a long period of time. And so even to this day, you can go there and you'll see what you would expect, the traditional Egyptian hieroglyphs and that type of thing. But then there's also Templar crosses carved everywhere from when the order was there. We also went to at Dendera, the Temple of Hathor at Dendera. There was also a Templar preceptory that was there, and so there's still
Hmm.
evidence of that, as well as some Templar graffiti. Um,
Hmm.
but the main reason they were there was because there is all kinds of depictions of lost technology uh,
Hmm.
in that particular, you know, temple. So we
And
went there as well.
and so I'm going to see if I can find the pictures here. You're probably talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, the rather infamous sort of helicopter, submarine, tank kind of pictures. Is that what we're
Yes,
talking about?
yeah. So that was at Abydos,
Uh
which is
huh. Okay.
another place we went to.
I actually have that bad boy. Oh, well, here, I'll
Yeah,
put that up just for people to see, but then I'll see if I can find that what you're also talking about because
yeah.
that's the
So Dindera, they have yeah. So that's there we go. That's at that is at uh, Abydos,
yeah.
which was basically this alchemical school. That's where they were teaching alchemy. That's where they were making, you know, alchemical substances,
Hmm.
some of which, you know, had a use that we believe was, you know, fairly sophisticated, not only for medicines but also for technology.
Mm.
Um,
Hmm.
so
Can
that was, you know, that was a big one.
can you give an example of that?
Yeah, so one of the things that uh, was pretty well established, particularly by the pharaoh Tutmosis III, though
Mm.
there's evidence that it had been around, you know, prior to that.
Hmm.
But Pharaoh Tutmosis III, and he was around in about 1350 BCE, so, you know, a
Hmm.
while ways back. But he developed well, I don't know, he didn't develop it, but he utilized it. He developed a whole manufacturing technique. He was kind of like the pharaoh that established the early workshops, if you will, to create mass amounts of what we would now call what we was be referred to in the Bible as manna.
Yeah.
But is really in the Egyptian text, it's referred to as mystics, which is like it's a white gold powder.
Mm.
And sometimes that's mistranslated as turquoise, only because of the
Hmm.
region that it's largely found in. there's a lot of turquoise in the region that it's found in. But this powder has it's powder that's in a monoatomic state.
I've heard of this. Yeah.
Also known as asymmetrical deformed nuclei, high spin nuclei. It's also known as a Cooper pair in physics. It's known as a number. It's also been referred to as orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements.
Jeez.
These are all modern terminology for it. In the ancient world, it was referred to as Manna.
Yeah.
And this Manna is because of the nature of it. At first, it doesn't show up as anything when you test it. So if you were to do a spectroscopic analysis on it, it doesn't. There's a couple different ways to test what a chemical is. You can do a spectroscopic analysis, you can do a chemical analysis, but this substance doesn't seem to react to anything, so it doesn't show up as anything, which is why it was called Manna, which in Hebrew just means what is it.
Really?
Yeah, that's
exactly what is it?
That's what Manna means in Hebrew. Yeah, it's what is it?
Interesting.
Because that's describing what it is. It's what is it? We don't know. I mean, if you test it, it doesn't show up as anything, but it's clearly something.
And by the way, here's Tutmosis the Third.
That's correct. Yeah. So that's the Tutmosis the Third statue of him at Luxor.
Yeah.
But he was he was established stuff all over the place. But this substance was really it's super conductive.
Yeah.
And it has some really unusual qualities, one of which is if you were to take a container filled with it and you were to take a same container filled with nothing, and you subjected the container filled with Manna to a weak electrostatic field, it actually causes the container filled with the Manna to weigh less than the same container filled with nothing. So it does something to cause the weight to change. So there's a levitation effect with it.
That's incredible.
And we think that this may have been partially how the hieroglyphs themselves do suggest that they were using this to levitate or move stones and other things. And in fact, the temple walls, that's exactly what they say they were doing with it. And so we found.
And where was that at? That has the temple walls that say that? I might even.
We found it at another place. The biggest one, of course, was at Edfu. Where the building texts are.
Yeah.
But it's also found at Luxor and a number of other places. We found the hieroglyphs for it. So what's interesting about that, I mean, is it implies that they were particularly using this Manna in conjunction with these boxes that we would recognize today as being like arcs. Oh, there's a box right there. That's one of the boxes.
This one right here?
Yeah. So if you look at the bottom there, that's a box, and they're always shown with these rods, on either side of it. One's like a axe, and those rods are designed to control the current that would be issuing from the box.
Is this also one here?
Yeah, that's one there as well. And you can see the field around it. And you can see it's actually being levitated, off the ground.
Whoa, yeah.
You can see where they're standing, and it's up off the ground,
Right. And there's nothing there really, except for this thing that you're saying is symbolic of the electromagnetic field.
The field around it. Yeah.
See, because like here it's on the ground.
That's right.
Level with their feet, and then here where it has the activation, it's floating. Yep. Wow.
And you can even see, like, if you look at kind of the left there, you can see like a field that's coming down from the arm there on the left hand side that's going, yeah, there you go, is
Uh-huh.
going down to the thing to help move it. So there's several examples of
Interesting.
that. And from a biblical standpoint, we know that, for example, if you consider the Ark of the Covenant,
Mm-hmm.
which is the most famous ark.
And is
uh,
this an arc here as well?
yeah, that's a replica of one. Yeah, so that's one of
Wow.
the replicas of them. And that's a Edfu. They have that replica of the ark.
Mm-hmm.
So what these arks or these boxes were is they held the manna. And of course, the Bible talks about that as well. It says, that the Bible, or that the ark held manna in it, and that people would carry it with these two rods, just like you can see here
Mm-hmm.
in this picture. But the problem is those arks, the 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 materials that they were made out of, they would have weighed several tons, and yet
Mm.
two people could carry them with rods,
Hmm.
right? So that's a problem if you consider standard physics, but it's not
Right.
a problem when you consider that there's this mana that's in it that, well, first of all, the materials of the ark act as a capacitor. They build
Mm-hmm.
up static electricity over time, and then they're discharged usually through the top, through the garlands or the wings of the winged figures, on the top of it. They would emit this electrical discharge, and that's part of the reason why no one could touch the ark without getting shocked to death.
Wow.
So this mana, if
Mm-hmm.
you put the mana, the superconductive substance, in the ark,
Mm-hmm.
and and it was building up the static electricity, the static discharge, it would activate the mana, which would cause the distribution of the weightlessness. And therefore, we shouldn't be surprised with, in the Bible, who's in charge of guarding the ark. It's the Levites. And of course, this is where we get the term levitation from, or levitation from.
Wow.
So it's in those rods, they would control the current, but they could also use those rods to ground the electricity. So if the arc started building up too much electricity, you just drop the rod against it. It would cause the electricity to go into the rod and into the ground, and then you could
Mhm.
handle the arc without shocking yourself. So there's
So,
depictions of this all over the place there in Egypt.
so I have a question. Like,
Oh, there's
there's
there's one of so here you see the levitation. You can see
this right
the
here.
god, and yeah, and you see the gravitational waves lifting it up.
Yeah, wild. So I have a question. They say there's another picture
Yep,
of the same thing.
yep.
So in the classic Indiana Jones movie, like the art, and also I think someone in the Bible, though, when I tried to run this down, I didn't find a lot of information that backed that up. But in the Indiana Jones movie, it's used as a weapon. Is it? Do you think that there was anything to that? It being used as a weapon to like level enemy armies or whatever. I mean, there's something kind of like that in the Bible from one of the versions I read, but it seems a bit of a stretch. Certainly not as dramatic as Indiana Jones and the
Yeah, I
Raiders.
think I think it probably did cause. I mean, if you had an arc,
Mm-hmm.
which, by the way, we could build one. I mean, we know the materials. That's the Idfu building text right there. Oh, and
This is
that's part of the Idfu building text right
that's
there.
incredible.
So you can see here that that's a Stargate. That's literally what
Mm-hmm.
that means, is Stargate or Saba.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the Egyptian hieroglyph Saba. It's the Stargate, and then, which is, by the way, is where the term Sabaeans comes from, or Sabians
Ah, yeah.
is from that. But here, you can see, their it's part of the depiction of these boats, moving through the Stargate, and
I think there's more on that as well.
Yeah, and there's another one. You can so it describes this this cataclysm with the cosmic waters, and then this escape on these boats, which is kind of interesting. Which seems to depict the story of Atlantis. And you can argue what the Stargate is. There's another Stargate, but these Stargates, there's another one, and you can see that symbol above the star actually represents a mouth, and it represents sound. So it represents the sound emanating from this Stargate, or the resonance. Another word for it would be resonance.
Wow.
In fact, that normally it's not uncommon to depict it with Hathor. So if you go back to that slide, sorry.
This one?
No, the other one you were just at.
This one? Oh no, the final one. Sorry, this one.
Yeah, this one. Yeah. So here you see another box, so that's actually another.
Oh, I see it here.
Yeah, that's another arc there, and then above it there are the white cakes. Or the white powdered gold cakes, which would be what we would call the Manna. That went with the ark, and that particular scene right there is, I believe that one was depicted at Luxor itself, and you can see the mercy seat there that goes above it even. And so we found evidence of these things depicted all over the place.
Fantastic.
And I mean, Egyptologists aren't really used to looking at it that way.
Right.
But we're fascinated as a Templar, part of our Templar tradition. We've documented and preserved a number of arcs throughout history. So we were looking at some of these Egyptian ones, including there's also legends of an ark being brought to an area in Egypt known as Elephantine Island, which is off limits to the public. And we went there as well. That place looks like a bomb went off at it, to be totally honest. And I mean, everything. I mean, there were 100-ton carved granite structures that have been completely just toppled over, and quartzite building structures that have been completely blown apart, and the evidence of it everywhere, that broken pottery everywhere. And then there was also we also, interestingly, at Elephantine Island, there's a temple, a Tutmosis III temple, again. And in the temple is depicted a figure wearing a Mayan headdress.
That's wild.
Which is really far out, because I mean it's very clearly Mayan. And
were there pictures of this? I'm trying to find it.
There is. They're a little hard to see. They're in there somewhere on one of my posts, but they have it's a.
Is it Como Ombo?
No, not Como Ombo. That was like a healing place, but that was one of the earliest depictions of the caduceus.
Oh, I think I maybe found it. It's a temple of Isis at Philae, as well as some giant unfinished obelisks at Aswan and the island of Elephantine. Is it in that?
Yes. Yeah, the island.
Okay.
Yeah,
I will. That one. Yeah. I'll share it, and then we'll see if we can find it. I tried to pull these up ahead of time here, so
so there it is. So that's Elephantine Island. You can see it's like kind of. I think that's.
It does even look.
That's the unfinished obelisk. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, that. Yeah, right there. Okay, that's interesting and impressive, and it shows how it's like Baalbek and Lebanon, where there's these giant rocks in situ, and like there's no way that they were
Yeah,
moving these things with
same
basic
size. And that's,
pores and levy. Yeah.
yep, and that's fillet right there. That's,
Hmm.
so
Beautiful.
keep going forward with that. Yeah, so that's fillet, and you'll see the Templar cross there, and there's another one.
Right there, yeah. That and you said that like these marks were made left later by Templar, correct?
Correct. Yeah, they just took
Yeah.
over the old temple and then,
There's another one.
yeah, left these marks on them and some other
Yep,
graffiti.
there's another one. They're all over the place. Boy,
Yeah,
our ancestors, so to speak, really got out there with those crosses everywhere they
yeah,
could.
that was one of the altars. You know, there's two main altars in that temple
Uh-huh.
of Isis.
There's Johnny Enoch. All right, let's see here.
So that's the actual temple. So that's the temple at Elephantine Island. And if you keep moving
Mhm,
forward, I'll
mhm.
explain what we're looking at. So this is Elephantine Island, which looks like it
Oh,
can be fell about apart. There is these butterfly clips markings, you know, between the
mhm,
stones, which used
mhm.
to be filled with metal in them. Some
Uh-huh.
people believe that they were actually acted almost like they had they broadcasted electricity to a certain degree, and that these spots were like
Like Wardenclyffe Tower with
yeah,
Tesla.
exactly, like Wardenclyffe, and that the areas where those butterfly clips are, rather than being to hold stones together, they were actually used to uh, receive the electricity. So you could, you know,
Wow.
so here this is at Elventine. You can see that line, that straight line going straight down the middle of it to those
Uh-huh.
pillars.
Yeah.
Kind of goes in the, we don't know what that is, but it seems to be marking like some sort of a ley line.
Yeah. Or maybe an astrological marker. Oh, here's more of where these clips
Yep,
used to be.
yep.
Interesting. And so they were doing some kind of wireless. Oh, wow. What is
Yeah, you
this?
see how that was knocked over. So that's like 100-ton granite uh structure just completely toppled over.
Probably made with some copper tools.
Yeah, yeah, you can't cut that with copper. I've different
Right.
theories about that, how they made that, but
Yeah, no, there's so much evidence of, especially on like some of that pink granite, to where it's like there's machining on it. There's no other explanation, because there's no way that copper is much softer than that granite. It's not even
that's right.
close. I forget what it's called, the ohm scale or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, there's no
Measure
way.
hardness, and there's no way that some of these things
Yeah.
in granite were
Oh, so
made.
there we go. So that's the Mayan right there.
Wow. Wow.
So
I haven't seen this one yet, so this is blowing
yeah,
my mind too.
yeah. So that's a Mayan headdress, you know, in this temple of Tutmosis III on Elephantine Island. And
So remind me, what's the era for Tutmosis? You said about 1300 BCE.
yeah, yeah, 1350 BCE. Yeah. And
So viewers, mind you, mainstream archaeology says the Mayan culture is like, I want to say 1200 years ago, like 800, maybe 600 or 400 AD, like at the absolute oldest. That's their claim. And
right.
this, it predates that by like almost 2000 years, 1600
Yeah,
years.
a lot.
That's, yeah, there's no way.
And you don't find that headdress anywhere else in Egypt with those feathered plumes on top.
Uh-huh.
That's not an Egyptian thing. It's a very clearly something you find in the Americas. I mean, certainly amongst the Nahuatl cultures, of which the Maya and the Aztec and others came out of, and eventually, you know, seem to have spread up into North America with some of the tribes up there as well.
Wow.
But the thought is, I mean, of course, those Nahuatl cultures, they say that they originally came from a that was called Atlan.
Right.
Atlan got destroyed in this cataclysm, and they escaped in boats to the New World, and then they started building pyramids and everything else. So, you know, some have seen the story of Atlan and Plato's story of Atlantis, which is also found on those Edfu building texts.
Mhm.
You know, it's the same story.
Mhm.
And the fact that we have this Mayan figure here is really suggestive of
Well, it
a lot
seems
more.
to. Oh, go ahead.
Well, it's just suggestive a lot more contact in the ancient world than is normally.
Exactly. I mean, it implies two things that, and or possibly a third thing, which is even more anathema to archaeology, which my opinion is archaeology is one of the biggest like snow jobs that there is, which isn't to say there's no value to it. It's just that it's so heavily controlled. It's very clear to me that various governments, and an easy one that any viewer, no matter what their mindset would agree with, is the Islamic government of Egypt doesn't like to say things are older than a certain amount, because if they do, that goes counter to Muslim doctrine, and that's risky because, like Tim was saying earlier, there was an Arab Spring that happened, back in 2011, and if the government of Egypt were to acknowledge that certain artifacts were older than the total year count in according to the Islamic text, like the Quran, then that would cause a great deal of disruption. So that's a very clear, nobody really argues it, obvious example of where a government has an interest in suppressing, especially how old certain historical things are. But this seems to imply that A, the Mayans are much, much older than we're told, B, that there was transoceanic, transatlantic contact that went all the way into the Mediterranean and Egypt. Or a third possibility, and these aren't mutually exclusive in my opinion, is that there's a antecedent culture that was, transatlantic in nature, or at least ended up with refugees who fled to both sides of the Atlantic after some kind of cataclysm, likely someplace along the mid-Atlantic ridge. And I say that simply because that's close to where the Azores are, and close to where there would have been land above the water when you had a much lower water table, much lower ocean levels during the last ice age, which is exactly the time frame that Plato gives us via Solon, via his trip to Egypt. Right. So yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, cool stuff. But this, by the way, these photos you're seeing of Elephantine Island, I mean, that whole island is closed to the public. It's not. This is all, not, it's not something that you're going to, that most people
regularly. Yeah. It's amazing.
But archaeologists have been digging there for the last 60 years, because we do know that at one point in time, there was also a Jewish temple there on that island, which is kind of unusual. Graham Hancock talks about it. Some in his research related to the Ark of the Covenant, but it does seem to, that there is speculation, that this spot may have been one of the holdout spots for one of these arks that we find in antiquity.
Wow!
So, and they're digging for it right now, still, yeah.
So,
oh, and by the way, there's also the whole area is the granite is turning into slate in the area, which
what?
Yeah, it's really
how is
weird.
that possible?
I don't know. It's strange. You can see it all throughout the island. It's the granite is transmuting literally into slate, and it seems to suggest that, I mean, that there has to be some sort of radioactive or high energy thing in the region that would be causing it to do that. So it's really, there's certain areas of the island that you see it more than others, but yeah, it's
I mean, have they looked to see if it's safe, like radiation wise?
I don't know.
I'd be a little alarmed if rocks were changing around me.
I've already had all the kids I want to have this life, so they should be okay. But
well, if you have any more somehow, I guess you could have they have superpowers, right? Isn't that,
yeah,
that's just science, I think, Tim.
Right.
Wow. So was there anything else on that trip that you wanted to sort of cover? I mean, like there's some amazing pictures that I just like, and maybe I'll just ask you some questions about some of those. Here's a good one that somebody took, and I believe that this is in one of the like sort of secret areas that you guys were able to
Oh yeah.
get access to that
That
normal.
was, yeah, so that was at Dendera, which is
I don't
where
know.
the famous Zodiac is. It's also where the light bulbs are.
Ah, yeah.
The
All right, so it's this series,
yeah,
right? So
correct.
that's
Yeah.
Dendera, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
it's so beautiful.
totally
I'm
beautiful. There's like a
oh, look at
scarab
that.
beetle on the ceiling, you know, on the
Amazing.
going through there.
Oh, it's just so gorgeous. I can only imagine what these places look like in their heyday.
Well, and you
Like my
see
goodness.
Hathor is on the tops of all those pillars. And again,
Yeah.
you have to remember Hathor means resonance, or it means sound.
Yeah.
And so,
Incredible.
it's really,
God,
really
the
alluding to
details.
that. Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm
And
in
that's
awe.
actually, so right there, that's the earliest depiction of the Eye of Horus.
Wow.
That was
And what's the estimated age for this? Like both public and like what we might privately
uh,
consider?
well, I mean, the official the official explanation is that it was a temple that was later restored by the Greeks,
Mm-hmm.
but that but privately, some archaeologists will say that they believe that this temple could be as 20,000 years old. I mean,
Wow. That puts it like that puts it back
really far back.
nearly a full turning of the great wheel. That would make
Yeah,
it, yeah, that's
really
wow.
fall back, and it's just been, it's had layers of things added to it. I mean, here you see depictions of like flying serpents and such there in the middle. And
Angels, it looks like a
yeah,
cherubim, like in
yeah,
terms of the number of wings and stuff.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's also where there's these staircases. There's a speculation. Some say it's just worn down. Others suggest that it looks like there was some sort of
Hydrofluoric
something
acid, you wrote?
melted the stone. I mean, I have my own theories. I think it might. I'm writing a book right now
Mm-hmm.
related to some ancient Egyptian alchemy, and
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I explore in there is this. I believe 100% that one of the things that the Egyptians were using was hydrofluoric acid. They learned
Mm-hmm.
to create that, and that, of course, melts particularly the silicates that you find in granite and
Yeah.
things. And so that's what they were using to etch the granite and to carve the granite was with this acid. And this to me looks like, and there's several other examples I found, but it
Mm-hmm.
looks like an acid spill, like they accidentally dropped the thing down the stairs and it just,
That's funny to think
yeah,
like that there's an accident that like lasts that who knows how many thousands of years
yeah.
later.
So these
Oh.
were like there's these secret chambers in there. And so like
Mm-hmm.
these are the Dendera, so-called Dendera light bulbs.
Mm-hmm.
There's speculation on the one hand, you could say it's depicting a creation story
Mm-hmm.
from the time of the Zeptepi, which was the time prior to the pharaohs ruling, and how
Mm-hmm.
they brought the knowledge to Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, and
Mm-hmm.
there's those boxes again. So if you,
Yeah, I'll click
so,
to this in a second, but you were going to say on the other hand, you think that it's,
well, it could be light bulbs. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
realistically,
it
I
sure
mean,
looks like it, doesn't it?
there's
Especially,
no, there's no evidence of soot or anything in there, so we don't really know how they were even able to light that chamber.
right.
It could be that they just using these light bulbs.
Yeah.
And if you here you see those boxes again.
Mhm. Oh, sorry. I'm like the second
All right.
behind you here. We'll go to
Yeah,
this.
so there's the four. Those are four boxes, four more of those boxes,
Mhm.
those arcs. So you can see them issuing the electricity out of the top of them.
And then
And
this is
that's
interesting.
Yep, and that's in the same area as those light bulbs. Like it's just the next panel over in the same little chamber. So
Wild.
yeah.
And I think there's a place where there it is. So it's up high in a wall. There's this a panel that slides out, which is
Yeah.
just super, super cool.
Yeah, it's this little secret entrance into, I mean, you wouldn't even know. So this like, you wouldn't even know it was there unless you knew it was there. I mean, and yeah, if you see that's Jay going, trying to fit through there,
Yeah.
going into
There's
the
inside.
chamber there. So it's
Yeah.
clear that's where like these mysteries were being.
And I think that's again this. Wait, let me see if I can find this picture here. Can you see that?
Yeah, that's all of us in there. Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
one of those chambers. Yeah, there's a bunch of these little chambers and there you can see at the bottom up right.
Oh yeah.
That's how we got into it, was through there.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And is this part of that chamber or is this
It
something
is,
else?
yeah.
It looks like it's upside down almost.
I know. It's kind of worn down. It's weird. It's
Strange
these weird
looking.
little chambers with low doors,
And then it looks melted on the floor again. Like that's very strange.
Yep.
And then meanwhile, look at these perfect right angles all over the place. And then there's parts of it that are very strange. Whoa, what's this? Ta?
I think that's Ta. At the time of the Zep Tepi, before the pharaohs ruled.
And is this a wheat thresher or is that a square?
It is. I don't know. We don't know exactly for sure.
Or like the thing the pharaoh has. I forget what it's called.
Yeah, and he's in some sort of a mirror, actually. So that thing below it, you see he's in like that circle disc. It's resting inside of like a.
Oh yeah, I see.
We don't know really what it is, but it's.
It looks like it could be tech as well. Interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there it is, like in a sort of greater context there.
Yeah.
Wow. So incredible. And there's more of those melted stairways.
Yeah.
I think that might be, I think that's a second example, actually.
Yeah. And then above that, that's the Zodiac at Dindera. It's one of the earliest depictions of the Zodiac. I mean, it's a replica of it. The original got removed and taken to the Louvre, and I believe it was at the Louvre in Paris. But they made an exact copy of it and sent it back, which they installed.
How generous of them to send back a copy.
Yeah. So. And that's Muhammad Ibrahim. He's just describing the Zodiac up there, and it's more than a Zodiac because it's almost like a star map, and it describes different levels of the universe and
wow,
and how to how to move from one part of it to another. It's almost like a roadmap for the universe. It's really
that's interesting because that's kind of like the Mayan calendar is that I've read that it's also like something to determine where you are in the plate, as they described it, of space-time.
Yep.
It's a map to figure out where you are in time and space, which is interesting because that gets into that whole, there's the theory of the holographic universe, and that actually everything is all existing. Like right now, the Roman Empire is, right now, the Zep Tepi period is, right now, ancient Egypt is, etc. The Middle Ages, everything, it all exists simultaneously. And it since it's already in existence, it's kind of like that you're along the Great Wall of China and it has a mural of all of time, but you can only see a part of it at any given moment of experience because it's so vast.
Yeah.
And is that sort of what this is describing? Something akin to that?
Something like that. I mean, it definitely shows the different star constellations. It shows paths between certain star constellations. And and then I mean, of course, it's a zodiac. It shows the zodiac too, so it shows the the timing of the precession of the equinox, or of the
the great year.
Yeah, the great year. So it's pretty complicated, to be honest, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So is there any
that's Templar graffiti that's there.
Oh, this right here.
Yeah, so that's some Templar graffiti, from back in the 1200s when they were doing studies there and trying to figure it out at that time. And that's the that's kind of the little temple area that they were, doing work in. But it has at the back there, it has this kind of gate, this door, but it doesn't go anything. And
Fascinating.
that's kind of, we don't know why, but that's,
Wow.
Egyptologists will say, oh, well, it's for the afterlife, or it's a doorway to the afterlife, or whatever.
Right. Yeah. It's always something
Yeah.
simplistic and made with copper tools.
Right.
And a bunch of slaves working really hard to build a ramp that would be more of an engineering marvel than the Great Pyramid itself, to build a ramp that would be 4 kilometers long or whatever to pull it up. So Tim, I'm thinking, unless there's something you want else, just in the interest of time, because I know you're an incredibly busy man, I was thinking that maybe we would stop here and then in a second come back and do part 2 with some questions answered. Or was there anything else in the Egypt trip that you wanted to like point out, and I can see if I can track down the pictures or not?
Well, I'd just say that we are going to go back there in March of 2023. Right now we got plans for March 16th through the 31st of 2023. So
my birthday
during the spring,
March 31st, so I feel like I have to go.
Yeah. So we'll be there during the spring equinox, and
that's cool.
So, and we're going to go to all these places again, plus more. And I mean, it's the trip is organized via Saba Tours. The name of the tour we have is Saba Tours, Stargate Tours. So
you want to be careful mentioning that when you go through French customs, though. They might get a little alarmed.
Yeah, but that'll, that's something that, certainly will be open to, people who want to go. I mean, we're gonna show a side of Egypt and show some things that just aren't open to the public, and tell a very.
And is that for Templar only, or is it open to the public?
No, it's going to be open to the public for people who want to go. We will have be doing some ceremonies there, for Templars only, but there's other things, there's plenty there's plenty, you'll stay so busy. It's a 2-week trip.
Is that the thing that Johnny Enoch advertises, initiation into the mysteries of Egypt? Because I can just throw that up on the screen real quick, if that's correct. Okay, give me just a sec. Gotta hit that.
I think if you go to my Facebook page, I just posted
so Johnny Enoch tagged you in something yesterday, and so it says initiation of the mysteries of Egypt from March 16th through the 31st of 2023 spring equinox, and it mentions a bunch of amazing people. And boy, they say enjoy fascinating lectures about lost ancient technologies, alchemy and emerald tablets, remote viewing, Templar secrets, and more. Details to come soon from Saba, SABA tours.com, all one word. Life-changing adventure includes 5-star luxury hotels, a Nile cruise, private permissions, and exclusive visits to ancient temples. And of course, Tim will be there to be doing a lot of the explanation, but a lot of other kind of luminaries in the esoteric and Egyptology, well, whatever, alternative Egyptology field will be there, like Johnny Enoch and so forth. So, well, Tim, I think that unless there's something else you want to add, we'll go ahead and end part 1 here, and then we'll come back with the Q&A from viewers. How's that sound? Yes. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop now. Thanks, by the way, for watching, viewer.